How's it going, everybody? In this video, we're going to pick up right where we left off with the last video with doing AS path prepending. And what we want to do in this video is we're going to be playing with the BGP med, or the metric value. Now, the thing with the metric value that you want to be aware of is you have to be very careful in how you work with this, because this is not something that you would usually set. This is something that the provider would do for you. And this is like one of the very rarely ever used attributes, because it's so far down in the path selection algorithm that, I mean, it's number 6 out of 13. So I mean, it's halfway down, but still, at the end of the day, it's very unusual for somebody to actually use this, and you can get really specific with how this stuff works, and go for. I apologize about that. I received a text message from my wife that I had to go take care of something real quick. So, anyway, where I was getting at was, because of where the med value comes into play, it comes down pretty far down the way, and you have to be careful as to how you're going to be looking at that. So, the one thing that we want to pay attention to is it's normally looked at from a single router perspective. Now, you can go in and you could tell BGP to always compare med, use deterministic med, and stuff like that, and it's going to look at the values that it sees, and I take that into account. But the problem with that being is 99% of the time you're never going to use this. So you're going to be either doing local preference, you're going to use AS path prepending, which AS path prepending does exactly the same thing that med does, except for the fact that you configure it and you don't rely on somebody else to do it for you. Because on the metric value is going to be sent to you by default of 0, because it's an optional non-transitive attribute, meaning that the provider has to set it outbound in order for you to prefer a route. So I could go in here and get all kinds of crazy on you, but you got to remember, this is a CCNP level course, and you're not going to be tested to this, at least as far as I know, you're not going to be tested to this level in the exam. They're going to want you to probably know what BGP is and some of the attributes, and what the difference between this one and that one is. Just know what med does. I'll show you guys from a configuration standpoint how it works, and we can go from there. But at the end of the day, it's not something that I would spend a ton of time on, unless you really want to learn BGP. If, like, for instance, you're interested in going after the CCNP service provider, or you want to go after CCIE, or you want to be CCIE service provider. Those are the only places I could see med being applicable in a real-world scenario. And there is a comment, well, this is certification, so we might as well just go for it. Well, that is technically true. It is a certification course, but I don't. From people that I know that have taken the 300 101 exam, they haven't seen this. So I didn't ask them what were the questions you saw. I just asked them, did you guys see metric value, and they're like, and BGP, and they're like, nope, we haven't seen it. So I haven't taken the exam myself, so honestly I don't know. But I will show you guys how it would work. And the very, very simple thing for you guys to remember is the lower the value, the better, because it's usually the lower metric wins in IGP routing. So the same thing applies in BGP routing. The lower metric wins. And normally it's the other way around, with other than AS path prepending, where the shorter AS path list wins, your higher local pref wins, your weight wins, all that type of stuff. Those attributes come into play. Those win. So there's a time and a place for it, but I guess when it comes down to it, it's not something that's widely used. I mean, I've never seen it used in production. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to router from router 5, actually, and it's safe to do it on this box. So we're going to do a show IP BGP, and I'm just going to help you identify where it comes in. So I'm going to show you guys basically how this breaks down, and these are routes that are coming in from the outside. Okay, so remember, the higher the metric, the worse the route. And so basically, if you were to look at this, all the zeros, I'm going to make this a little easier for you guys to see. I'm going to go to global config, type in router BGP 12345, type in BGP. Is it going to let me type it in here? No, I bet you have to go underneath the address family. Address family IPv4, and then BGP Best path. No, I'm sorry. Which one is it? Is it that one? I'm looking for med missing is worst. And I forget where it's at. There's so many little things that come into play with this stuff. Let's exit out of here and type in BGP. Or is it just... Hold on, there's gotta be something in here. It's always compare med, best path, best... No. What are my options here? BGP, best path, med, missing is worse. There it is. I hit enter. Now if I type in do show IP BGP now, you're going to see that all of the learned routes in. Okay. Anywhere you see a 4.2 billion, that means we learned it inbound and it was set as a 0. So that's where that comes into play. So these routes are going to be the worst, but however, here's the kicker though. Because med is so far down the BGP selection algorithm, sometimes it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even come into play. And the reason for that is because of the fact that the value. So if you have a shorter AS path, guess what? That's going to take precedence. If you have a better local preference, that's going to take precedence. If you have it's locally originated, it's going to take precedence. So at the end of the day, like I said, metric doesn't really play a whole lot in there. That's BGP missing is worst. So that's one attribute to take a look at. The other one we're going to take a look at is we're going to come up here and we're going to go to router 13, and we're going to make any routes. We're going to set a route map outbound towards router 5 that says any routes. We're going to set the metric to be something high. So if we were to look at, jump out here into it, type in show IP BGP, regex, anything that's take that back. Yes, show IP BGP 135.0.0.1 received routes. Received. That's not what I'm looking for. No. Neighbor. That's it. Neighbor 135.0.0.1, and we're going to see routes. So these are the routes we've learned from the neighbor. This is how you can determine what you've got going on. So all these routes right here we've learned from 135. We're also going to do the same thing for 56.0.0. Alright, so we've only learned one route from 56, and that's the 1010 route, right? And we've learned all these routes from router 13. So what we want to do is on router 13, we want to make sure that technically these routes are already worst. So what we want to do is we want to actually, because we're learning them as worst, we're going to pull that command out, and I'm going to say on router 13 for any routes going out towards router 5, I'm going to set the med to be something insane, like 1,000,000 or something like that. So let's go back to 5. Router BGP 12345. Type in BGP best path med missing is worst. No. And do show IP BGP. That takes care of that problem now. That's gone. Now we're going to go to router 13 though. Click on 13. We're going to exit out of here and exit out of here again. We're typing route dash map med. We're going to set the... We're not going to match anything, which is going to match everything. We're going to set the metric to be 1,000,000. It's 1,000,000 right there, right? Yep, 6 zeros. Looks good to me. Type in router BGP 13. Type in neighbor of 135.0.0.2. Route map. Route do show run pipe section BGP 135.0.0.2. Right, that's the correct neighbor. Yep. Ah, that's why. Okay, so address family IPv4. We're going to type in neighbor of 135.0.0.2 route-map med, and we're going to say outbound. Do clear IPBGP star soft. We go to router 5 now. Whoopsie. On router 5, we're going to jump out of here. We're going to do a show IPBGP now. And you'll see that all these routes are coming in with a value of 1, or 1 million, right? Now that's going to indicate to us, if we hit the up arrow a couple times, so here we're getting all these values in, and notice how that all these values all of a sudden now they're coming in as before. If we were to look up here, where did I put it? Right here. So notice how before, well, they were pretty gnarly to begin with, but most of the routes were going. The next hop was, well, as you can see. Let's see. The metric came in as 1 million. Okay, at least it took effect, which is good. Actually, didn't affect anything. So if we were to do, those are the routes we're receiving. When we do a show IPBGP though, we're not going to go that route. We're going to go, actually we are. And the reason for that is because, actually we're going 56 on that one because of the local pref. 135, we're going 36 that way, 56 on this one. So as you can see, the metric value, we should be choosing to go in a different direction if there isn't a better attribute already in use. So actually, let me do this. Let me type in, let's see here, 36, that's fine, 56. Scroll all the way to the top real quick here. Well, not a lot is coming in. But see here, this is something that's 10.255.13.2. I don't know where that's coming from. 13.12. I don't know where that's coming from. But as you can see right here, 56 is used to get to 10.10. Let's see here. So as you can see, the med value is coming in, right? And it's coming in, and it's not. These routes are not. Well, obviously, the reason why they're choosing to go 137 is because of the fact that they are local preference is telling them to go that way. But let's say local preference was taken out, it would have to default back to the med value. So you can have multiple. You could layer your attribute functionality by layering it in there. Say for instance, local preference, the process failed and med was still working, you'd be able to process this in. So, but that's just a general idea of how this would work. Now the last thing I'm going to show you for BGP, because I've pretty much gone over everything I can think of for BGP for CCNP. I went over the blueprint, and I'm like, okay, I covered that, I covered that, I covered this. So last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you is on router 3. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to do a show IPBGP. I'm going to grab all these 10.255 routes. I'm going to consolidate them down to. And notice right here we have 4.2 billion. That the BGP missing is working. The 10.255 network. I'm going to consolidate them all down into one big /16. So what I'm going to do is on 3. I'm going to go to global config. Type in router BGP 12345. Type in address family IPv4. I'm going to type in aggregate address. Right, it's going to be 10.255.0.0 with a mask of /16. Now, here's the thing about aggregation that gets most people. Unlike your IGP, BGP will not by default take the longer match routes and suppress them. BGP will advertise both the shorter match and the component routes of the summary or the aggregate route together. So you'll get both the /20, /16 and a bunch of /24s or a bunch of /32s. So in order to have it just summarize, you need to type in a summary only. So you type in summary only, and then that's all there is to it. You hit enter, and then if we go over to router 7 and do a show IP BGP, we should be receiving a 10.255. So here we go. The drawback to that, though, as you can see, I get the summary route, right? It's there, it's good to go. Notice what I get in addition to that. A bunch of /32 routes. For whatever reason, GNS3 does not support the fact that, and I've tried this several different platforms, and it just doesn't work. It still advertises the /16 in addition to all the component routes, even though on here I typed in the summary only command, which should summarize everything down to a /16, but only advertise the summary, not the longer match /32 routes. I'm not exactly sure why it does that. It just, it is what it is. I can't control it. Just be cognizant of the fact that it's even on 9. If you were to do on 9, my mouse is like freaking out on me over here. Hit the show IP BGP. You'll see the /16 come in, and you'll also see a bunch of /32s. I'm not sure why it does that. I mean, it is what it is, but at the end of the day, it gets the job done. So if we do a show IP route, you'll see a 10.255/16 in here, as well as all these component routes, which technically should not be there. Now, if it was working here, in here, you'd actually see where it would be a little s, which would mean suppressed. They should have a little s next to them right here, and all these asterisks right here should be s's, and it should show up as suppressed. So I know there's something, it's buggy. I'm not sure if it's a GNS3 code or what, but there's an issue there where it's summary only, it suppresses them, and it'll have a little s there. If the route was damped for some reason, it's flapping and it hits the decay rate, and it's gone through its half-life and it's flapped again. This little d right here will be the asterisk will be a lowercase d. The other thing that I want to show you guys real quick is how to multipath. So what we can do from here, from router BGP 789, you might have multiple paths off the network to the same destination. Well, the key thing to pay attention with that is if you do have multiple paths off the network, is like for instance, let's see here, this route right here, 135, there's 2 paths off the network to get there. Well, what you can do here is type is BGP ? And you could type in, is it multipath? Let's see here. Let's do a do show run pipe section BGP. I'm not sure if I'm... Yeah, so it should be BGP. Maximum paths. Let's see here. Best path. We'll say best path just for kicks and giggles. Best path. No, that's not it. Is it under here? Maximum paths. There it is. Maximum paths. Maximum paths. Maximum paths. And we're going to say 2. And question mark and hit enter. So now if we do jump out here and do a show IP BGP. Now you'll see anywhere where there's multiple paths to go, and it doesn't even show it in here because there's obviously none, you'll be able to take multiple paths. So actually, let's go back to router 5, and we'll be able to go to global config and router BGP 12345 and type in maximum address family IPv4 maximum paths is 2. Show IP BGP. You'll see where anywhere it can. Well, it's not showing it for whatever reason. These guys right here will show up with an M. Anywhere it can load balance, it will, if it's applicable. But the thing is, in order for it to multipath, though, all of the values for the attributes have to match all the way down through 8. So let me pull up my. So the weight, local preference, local origination, AS path, origin, the med, eBGP over iBGP, IGP metric to the next hop. All those have to be exactly equal. So that if you wanted to multipath, down here is where you could do that. But I just wanted to show you the command. You could go in there multipath and just type in maximum paths is what have you, and depending on the code you're running, you could run BGP best path, AS path, multipath relax. This is where if the AS path is not the same, that's one way you could do that. But this is getting into the weeds of how this would actually work. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. They could break BGP potentially. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you in that. But that pretty much wraps up BGP. There's not a whole lot more I can show you. I've shown other than filtering. And filtering, what here is the same thing with configuring a distribute list with a prefix list. Like if you want to prevent a route from coming in. So let's say for instance on router 8. Let's go to router 8 and do a show IP BGP. If you wanted to, or show IP route I should say, show IP route. If you wanted to prevent the let's see, for instance here, if you wanted to prevent anything 10.255 from being learned in, we could do that. So let's grab a bulk of routes. So we'll go to config T, type in IP prefix list. We're going to say is going to be loopback, and we're going to say deny and 10.255.0.0/16, and then we're going to do a permit 0.0.0.0/0 LE32. The reason I have to put that in there is because of the fact that I'm doing a deny statement. If I don't put an explicit permit in there, there's an implicit deny. So I'm going to type in router BGP 789. I'm going to type in distribute list, and we're going to type in prefix list and loopback, and inbound. Jump out of here and then do a show IP route. Those routes are no longer there. Actually, no, they're not. That's funny. They're still here. I might have to be more specific about that. Let me double that up real quick. Let me go to IP prefix list, loopback, and deny 10.255.1.1/32. Actually, another type in do show run pipe pipe section prefix. All right, so actually we'd have to take this, type in no, and pull this guy out, and do another, hit the up arrow again, and do 2.2 and 3.3 and 4.4, and I'm going to do 5.5 as well, and then have put this guy in here and do show run prefix. That should pop everything back in. So we should have an all-encompassing route. And what we're going to do is sequence 10. So we're going to go back in here, pull this guy out, but we're going to say this is sequence 40. And do show run prefix again. There we go. Now we were to do a do show IP route now. Yeah, see, that's not affecting anything. Interesting. Pretty sad that it's not working. There's a question. What about using an access list? You could do that too. Like for instance, if we were to configure, we'd have to actually go back and pull that distribute list out. But IP access list extended, or no, standard. Sorry, it's a source standard, and we're going to say is going to be loopback, or just loop, and we're going to say we're going to deny 10.255.1.1 or host 10.255.1.1 and 2.2. We'll just deny those two and type in router or actually, and we'd have to put in a permit any, and router BGP 789, and oh, so type in do show run pipe section BGP. There's a question, how come I'm having to go in there and pull it out? You read my mind, actually. You have to pull the distribute list and the prefix out because of the fact that you can only do one at a time. So, like, if I wanted to go to the end here and type in access list or distribute list, then the name of the is going to be loop in inbound, and do show IP route, and then do a do clear IP route star. Gee, that fix it. There are they. Okay, now they're gone. So an access list took care of it. So now if I was to go back to type in do show run pipe section access, and we were to go to type this guy in, and type in no permit any, and then type in deny host 10.255.3.3 and 4.4 and 5.5, and then do a permit any, and then do clear IP route star, and do show IP route. Notice how 1 through 5 is now missing. That's how you would filter routes out of the routing table. But if we were to do a do show IP route or do show IP BGP, I believe they're still going to be in there, and they are. But R means they are rib failure, means we know about them some other way. But in this case, we're actually filtering them out, so that's why they're showing up as rib failure. Because if you look down here, 6 is located somewhere else, and that gives you the idea of how that would work. So that's pretty much it. I hope this has been informative for you. I'd like to thank you for viewing.